Sacred objects. History. A splinter of wood. A fragment of bone. A piece of worn cloth. On their own, they are nothing more than the mundane debris of history. But imbue them with a story, with a connection to the divine, and they transform. Suddenly, that splinter is from the cross of a savior. That bone belonged to a revered saint. That cloth wiped the face of a prophet. They cease to be mere objects and become relics, icons, conduits of immense spiritual power. This transformation is one of the most enduring and universal phenomena in human history. Across every continent and throughout every epoch, humanity has felt a profound impulse to locate the sacred, the transcendent, the divine, not just in abstract ideas, but in tangible, physical things we can see, touch, and venerate. But how does this happen? What is the theological machinery that turns a simple object into a focal point for the faith of millions? The core concept, shared across countless traditions, is that of immanence, the idea that the divine is not entirely separate from our world, but can be present within it. Sacred objects become the ultimate expression of this immanence. They are designated points of contact, physical anchors for an intangible reality. In Christian theology, this is rooted in the very idea of the incarnation, where God became flesh. If divinity could inhabit a human body, then a lingering grace or spiritual power could surely reside in the physical remains of those who were closest to God, the saints. This is why the veneration of relics became so central. A bone from St. Peter wasn't just a historical artifact. It was believed to be a vessel of his spiritual power, a direct link to his intercession in heaven. The Second Council of Nicaea in 787 formally affirmed the practice, drawing a crucial distinction. Believers were to show veneration and honor to relics and icons, not adoration or worship, which was reserved for God alone. The object was a bridge, not the destination. It was a means to focus the mind and soul on the divine reality it represented. This principle echoes powerfully in other faiths. In Buddhism, the practice centers on stupas, magnificent dome-shaped structures built to house the sharira, the sacred remains, typically pearl-like crystals found among the ashes of enlightened masters, most importantly, the Buddha himself. After the Buddha's parinirvana, his ashes were said to have been divided and enshrined in stupas across the land. These weren't tombs for mourning, but places of living presence. Circumambulating a stupa, a key devotional practice, is an act of meditation, a way of generating positive karma and connecting with the Buddha's enlightened mind. The relic inside makes the stupa more than just a monument. It turns it into a spiritual generator, radiating the essence of the enlightenment it contains. The famous Temple of the Tooth in Sri Lanka, which houses a purported tooth of the Buddha, is one of the most sacred sites in the world, a testament to the idea that a physical fragment can embody the entirety of a spiritual path for millions of followers. Even in traditions like Islam, which strongly caution against anything that could lead to idolatry, the need for tangible connection finds expression. While there is no formal system of relic veneration akin to Christianity, the reverence for objects associated with the Prophet Muhammad is profound. Hairs from his beard, his cloak, his footprint impressed in stone, these are preserved in places like Istanbul's Topkapi Palace and are objects of deep love and respect. They are not worshipped, but they serve as powerful reminders of the Prophet's life and example. The most famous example is perhaps the Hajar al-Aswad, or the Black Stone, set into the corner of the Kaaba in Mecca. Believed to have been sent from heaven, pilgrims on the Hajj strive to touch or kiss it, seeing it as a direct physical link to the time of both the Prophet Ibrahim and the Prophet Muhammad. It is a focal point, a piece of sacred history embedded in the most important ritual of the faith. This impulse extends beyond the relics of holy people. Sacred texts themselves can become objects of veneration.
For centuries, an illuminated manuscript of the Bible or a beautifully calligraphed Quran was not just a book containing words. The physical object itself was considered holy. The intricate art, the gold leaf, the careful labor, all were acts of devotion that imbued the object with a sacred quality. In Judaism, the Torah scroll is the holiest object in a synagogue. It is handled with extreme care, dressed in fine coverings, and paraded through the congregation. To drop a Torah scroll is considered a grave event, requiring communal acts of repentance. The physical scroll is the embodiment of God's covenant with the Jewish people, a tangible piece of their sacred history. So, from the bones of saints, to the ashes of the enlightened, to the very words of God made manifest on parchment, the theological framework is clear. These objects are sanctified through their association. They are not magic talismans in a vacuum. They are saturated with meaning, memory, and perceived divine presence. They make the abstract accessible. They allow faith to be not just something you think or feel, but something you can see, approach, and connect with in a physical space. They answer a deep human need to bridge the gap between our material world and the vast, unseen spiritual reality we seek. But this theological explanation, as powerful as it is only one half of the story. For these objects to truly move crowds, something profound also has to be happening inside our minds.
Block 2. Psychology of belief. We've established the theological software, the stories and beliefs that designate an object as sacred. But for that software to run, it needs compatible hardware, the human brain. The immense power of sacred objects isn't just a matter of divine grace. It's also a masterclass in human psychology. It taps into our deepest cognitive frameworks, emotional needs, and social instincts. To truly understand why a crowd stands in rapt awe before a piece of bone, we have to look at the powerful psychological and neurological mechanisms at play, the hidden currents that generate the profound experience of the sacred. At the very foundation is the power of narrative. An object is inert until it is embedded in a story. The Shroud of Turin is just a piece of linen until you hear the story that it may be the burial cloth of Christ. Suddenly, every fiber, every faint image is charged with colossal meaning. This story provides context, but more importantly, it provides an emotional connection. Our brains are wired for narrative. We understand the world, our history, and our own identities through stories. The sacred object acts as the protagonist of a grand, ongoing narrative in which the believer can participate. By venerating the object, they are stepping into that story, connecting themselves to a lineage of faith that stretches back for centuries. This connection creates a powerful sense of meaning and purpose, satisfying a fundamental human need to belong to something larger than ourselves. This narrative power is amplified by powerful cognitive biases. One of the most significant is what psychologists call essentialism, our intuitive belief that things have a hidden, underlying essence that defines what they truly are. It's the reason a child might treasure a pebble from a special place, believing it holds the specialness of that location. With sacred objects, this is magnified 1,000-fold. Believers perceive the holiness or blessedness of a saint not as an abstract quality, but as a tangible essence that can be transferred to and reside within their physical remains. This isn't just a bone, it's a vessel containing the essence of sainthood. This belief makes the object a potent and direct source of that desired quality. This is then reinforced by confirmation bias. If a pilgrim visits a shrine feeling hopeful and then feels a sense of peace, they are likely to attribute that feeling to the power of the relic, ignoring other potential causes, like the quiet atmosphere, the act of meditation, or the simple relief of arriving after a long journey. Each positive experience is logged as proof, strengthening the belief in the object's power. Perhaps the most dramatic psychological mechanism is the placebo effect. Often misunderstood as fake healing, the placebo effect is a documented and powerful phenomenon where a person's belief in a treatment can trigger real physiological changes. When a person with deep faith approaches a sacred relic believed to have healing powers, their brain can be flooded with expectation and hope.
This powerful belief can trigger the release of endorphins, the body's natural painkillers, and other neurochemicals that can reduce symptoms, alleviate pain, and create a genuine feeling of well-being. The object acts as the trigger, the catalyst that unlocks the mind's incredible power to influence the body. The healings reported at shrines like Lourdes are not necessarily supernatural miracles in the conventional sense, but they are undeniably real experiences for the people involved, powered by the potent combination of faith, hope, and ritual, all focused on a single sacred point. Beyond the individual, sacred objects exert their greatest force on the group. The sociologist Emile Durkheim coined the term collective effervescence to describe the intense shared energy that emerges when a community comes together in a shared ritual or focus. A sacred object is the perfect catalyst for this. Imagine a procession where a revered icon is carried through the streets. Thousands of people are gathered, their attention unified, their emotions synchronized. The individual's personal faith is amplified by the visible faith of everyone around them. The energy of the crowd creates a feedback loop, intensifying the emotional experience for everyone involved. In that moment, the object is no longer just a symbol. It becomes the living heart of the collective, a focal point for a powerful shared consciousness that can create feelings of transcendence and profound unity. This is the psychology of the crowd, where belief becomes a contagious and self-reinforcing force. These objects anchor not just our memories, but our very identities, binding us together in a shared story, a shared experience, and a shared reality. But this power, born from theology and amplified by psychology, doesn't stay confined to the realm of belief. It spills out, shaping cultures, building nations, and moving the very gears of history.
Block 3. Cultural Power Dynamics. The story of a sacred object doesn't end with its theological meaning or its psychological impact on an individual. That is merely the source of its power. The truly fascinating part is what happens when that power is unleashed upon the world. These objects, charged with the collective belief of millions, become dynamic agents in their own right. They are not passive artifacts sitting in churches or temples. They are cultural, social, and political powerhouses that have shaped the course of human history. They build cities, inspire unparalleled art, fuel economies, legitimize rulers, and, at times, become the justification for devastating conflict. First and foremost, sacred objects are community builders. They are gravitational centers around which entire societies can form and define themselves. In the Middle Ages, the possession of a major relic could elevate a small town into a major European destination. The city of Santiago de Compostela in Spain owes its very existence to the belief that the remains of the Apostle St. James were discovered there. This belief spawned the Camino de Santiago, one of the most important pilgrimage routes in Christianity, drawing people from across the continent. This shared journey and destination forged a common European identity, a Christendom that transcended local languages and politics. The pilgrimage itself became a vast network for the exchange of ideas, art, and commerce. The object didn't just create a destination, it created a civilization-spanning network. This same principle applies to countless sites around the world, where a sacred object or place becomes the nucleus of a community's identity and its connection to the wider world. This cultural gravity inevitably inspires breathtaking art and architecture. A simple relic is often not enough. Its perceived importance demands a worthy vessel. This led to the creation of some of the most stunning works of art in history. Intricate reliquaries crafted from gold, silver, and precious gems were designed not just to protect the object, but to visually communicate its sacred value. And these reliquaries, in turn, needed a home. The great Gothic cathedrals of Europe, like Chartres, built to house the tunic of the Virgin Mary, or Sainte-Chapelle in Paris, constructed by King Louis IX to house the crown of thorns, were architectural marvels designed to be reliquaries on a colossal scale. Their soaring heights, stained glass windows depicting the stories, and elaborate designs were all created to evoke a sense of heavenly grandeur, a fitting home for a piece of the divine on earth.
The sacred object becomes the seed from which a vast ecosystem of art, architecture, and cultural heritage grows. Naturally, where there are crowds and devotion, an economy follows. The economic impact of sacred objects is immense. The pilgrimage trade has been a form of mass tourism for millennia, supporting entire towns with its need for lodging, food, and souvenirs, from pilgrim badges in the Middle Ages to modern-day memorabilia. But this economic power also has a darker side. The immense value placed on relics in medieval Europe created a rampant and often fraudulent trade. Skeletons were miraculously multiplied to provide bones for countless new saints, and splinters of the true cross became so numerous that, as the reformer John Calvin wryly noted, you could build a whole ship from them. This raises the thorny question of authenticity. While modern techniques like carbon dating can debunk some claims, as they did with the Shroud of Turin, dating it to the medieval period, for many believers, the empirical truth is secondary. The object's power lies in its role as a symbol, a focal point for faith. Whether it is real or not, the spiritual experience it facilitates is undeniably authentic to the individual. This immense cultural and economic value inevitably translates into political power. For centuries, kings and emperors sought to acquire major relics to legitimize their rule, framing their power as divinely sanctioned. Charlemagne collected relics avidly to cement his status as the head of a new Holy Roman Empire. The possession of a powerful relic was a political statement, a symbol of divine favor that could secure the loyalty of the people. But this also made them targets. The most infamous example is the sacking of Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade in 1204, where Western Christian armies plundered the city, carrying off countless priceless relics to adorn the cathedrals of Venice, Paris, and Rome. What was a sacred treasure for one group became political and military loot for another. This dynamic continues today in debates over the repatriation of sacred artifacts held in Western museums, objects taken from indigenous or colonized peoples, where the line between preservation, ownership, and sacred right remains fiercely contested. From theology to psychology to raw political power, the journey of the sacred object is a profound reflection of our own. These items show us our deep-seated need for connection to something beyond ourselves, our ability to imbue the mundane with the miraculous through story and belief, and our tendency to organize our societies, art, and even our conflicts around these powerful symbols. They are mirrors showing us that the ultimate power doesn't lie in the splinter of wood or the fragment of bone itself, but in the incredible world-shaping force of human faith.